ready maybe to mug an old lady or to shoot someone, they'll say, oh, no, 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 I don't want to go back there because Joe Clark is bad.
The man who was once America's most famous high school principal has taken on a tougher job as the warden of Essex County's juvenile jail. But locking kids up is just part of the picture. Juvenile justice on the docket for this week's Due Process.
Major funding for Due Process is made possible by the New Jersey State Bar Foundation, committed to educating the public about the law. Additional funding is provided by Lawyer's Diary and Manual, publishers of print and electronic information for and about the legal community, including the legislative manual.
More than 90,000 arrested in 1 year, nearly 50% increase in less than a decade. We're talking about juveniles who now represent more than 1 in 4 of all arrests in this state. Can an upcoming overhaul of the juvenile justice system turn those numbers around? And what will it mean to the kind of overcrowding that's turned the juvenile correction system into a juvenile warehouse system? We'll take on those questions and more in the next half hour. But first, here's Sandra King with one man's Get Tough approach.
Ray, the man in question is known best in New Jersey because of the way he turned around Patterson's East Side High before Patterson's Powerful turned him out. But he's known to the rest of the country as the real-life principal played on film by Morgan Freeman in the movie Lean on Me. And these days he's known at the Essex County Youth House as the tough guy who's taken over the state's toughest juvenile jail.
When they get ready maybe to mug an old lady or to shoot someone, they'll say, oh, no, 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 I don't want to go back there because Joe Clark is bad.
He trying to show us that we have to be responsible when we go home.
Is it working?
I don't know. I ain't go home yet.
And some of the 200 kids who are locked in here won't be going home anytime soon.
Stolen car, and somebody died because I got in a car accident.
So you're liable to get to know Mr. Clark very well.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
How long you been here?
2 weeks.
What are you here for?
Murder.
How long do you think you'll be here?
For some years. Ain't no big thing, though.
But Joe Clark is determined to make it a big thing by employing his own take on scaring kids straight.
The sight of the gallows make men honest.
And though a federal lawsuit just last year called the youth house filthy and inhumane, Joe Clark insists it's been
a place of leisure, a resort of types.
So while he's mounted a massive cleanup, he's also tightened the discipline here. TV now stays on only 1 hour a day. Everyone wears a uniform, and everyone gets a crew cut.
But I ain't, though.
You're not going to cut him?
No.
What do you think's going to happen?
Whatever happens, just happen. I don't got no privileges anyway.
His hair is going to be cut by whatever means necessary. And I might state, our barber doesn't see too well.
It's the kind of approach that put Joe Clark on the firing line in Patterson, on the cover of Time magazine, and even in the movies.
You are all expurgated.
And though so far he's left Bat and Bullhorn at home, the theory behind his appointment was that a drastic situation requires drastic action. This building with all its problems is more than 80 years old, and a new youth house is set to open next year. But there are no guarantees that Joe Clark will be here to run it. He says this job is not forever. He'll stay, he says, just long enough to make the kind of change that just might stick.
Boot camp starts tomorrow. You'll find out tomorrow.
And New Jersey's scheduled to launch a real boot camp for kids in the Burlington County Pinelands within months. It's part of that package of bills signed into law last month. The idea is that for a term of about 6 months, a nonviolent juvenile offender would get exercise, discipline, and education in a Spartan-style camp modeled after the military. But the camp would serve only about 60 kids, while the juvenile courts each year process tens of thousands.
With 90,000 kids in the pipeline and a 60-person boot camp, it sounds kind of like a drop in the bucket, Sandy.
It's also being described as a new and bold initiative, and yet boot camps for kids have been talked about for at least 10 years.
That's why some critics have said it's too little, too late. And when we come back, we meet an expert on juvenile delinquency who's both social worker and attorney, and a retired judge who's been helping set state policy on juvenile justice for the last 2 decades. So stay with us.
Juveniles know the system. You know, if you can sell drugs, if you're like under 18, they let them out. They can just let them out to their parents or something, you know what I'm saying? So they go right back out and do the same thing.
The courts, once we get them arrested, we can't follow through with it.
They just seem to be getting away with it, in my opinion.
Until he gets to be 18, he could be a repeated offender, you know, over and over and over. You know, and the problem never gets resolved.
They should treat minors or some of the youth more like adults and impose stricter sentences on them.
I think they should spend a little more time on education and beef up the law enforcement activities.
They got to be a little tougher on it, especially in the schools and stuff, because that's where it all starts from.
I really don't think they're doing anything. I think they need more programs, you know, instead of throwing everyone in jail.
Try this for chilling. 1 of every 3 accused rapists under 17. 1 of every 6 accused killers under 17. And virtually every crime category up for juveniles. Are the courts to blame? Could they be doing more? And will the governor's new laws really make any difference? For answers, we turn to Jesse Moskowitz, a Middlesex County lawyer and social worker with a specialty in juvenile delinquency, and B. Thomas Leahy, retired Superior Court judge and chair of the New Jersey Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Committee. Judge, that's a complex title for a very important subject. If you looked at the package that we just showed our viewers, there's a young man who's using a roller on the ceiling, and Sandy asks him whether he's been prepared by his experience in the Essex County Youth House to go home, and he answers with some perspicacity, I don't know, I haven't been home yet. You sat in Essex County and have a great deal of familiarity with the subject. Are the things that are happening in the youth facilities around the state right now today preparing young people who are juvenile offenders to go back into society?
Well, the problem is that the detention facilities are only for those who are accused, not yet convicted of any offense, and they're not really correctional.
But some of those young people stay in those facilities for a fairly long period of time, do they not?
Unfortunately, yes. They shouldn't be, but some are, especially those who have been waived for handling as adults so that they can face adult sentences. While that decision is on appeal, many of them stay there 400 or 500 days.
So in those 400 or 500 day periods, or sometimes shorter periods, is there much happening in those facilities that can give us some assurance that when those kids come out, they're going to have a chance to participate in society and we don't have to be fearful of them or for them?
Not in those facilities. Hopefully, yes. In places like Jamesburg, the Bordentown facility, a lot of the group homes that have been established, the Fields programs, those are the ones that are trying to do the rehabilitation work.
Do you agree, Mr. Moskowitz, that there's a lot going on that's rehabilitative and should give us some assurance that kids coming out can participate in society in a meaningful way?
Not nearly what should go on in the Fields programs in Jamesburg. There have been significant improvements in the last 2 years while our juvenile justice system has been split, a kind of separation, forced separation, which the legislation you mentioned is going to bring back together. And hopefully that will bring about greater coordination, and in the additional funds provided represent, in my mind, the first glimmer of hope in the last half a dozen years or so.
I think much of the public perception is that while there's too little of it, that most of what goes on in juvenile facilities is disciplinary, tough haircuts and regimentation and not much more. Is that really what's happening in the juvenile facilities in the state as of now?
The juvenile facilities, as you mentioned earlier, are warehousing. Certainly the detention facilities, there is literally a crisis in our state. We have some 600-odd beds for detention. That's pre-adjudication. These are innocent individuals, and as you know, juveniles aren't entitled to post bond to get bail, so that if there's a risk that they won't show up or for their hearing or that they represent safety danger to society, they will go into detention. Some stay 30 and 40 days before they get their hearing, and not enough goes on. Education, there's no statewide funding formula for education, so while in some facilities, for example in Ocean County, they may get 4 and 5 hours a day of schooling and education and linkages back to their home school district so that they don't lose credit, so that they don't lose a semester. In others, they get maybe 1 hour every 2 days of education.
So when Joe Clark says those facilities are resorts, that's hyperbole that probably isn't supported by reality?
Absolutely. There is one thing I would clearly agree, and I think Judge Leahy would as well, with Joe Clark, and that is that none of us want to see juveniles return to those places, and none of us want to see juveniles spend a significant amount of time in the detention facilities. Those that need to move on to either treatment programs or to incarceration at Jamesburg or in Bordentown need to move through there more quickly, and in any given day there are, as I said, 1,000 juveniles in our 600 beds. You can figure out the overcrowding situation on that alone. And there are 150 to 200 juveniles awaiting placement in Jamesburg, Bordentown, the DIFAS programs, and other state treatment programs.
Fair to say that with juveniles, there's a high percentage of possibility that eventually, even if they're adjudicated as an offender and given some period of time, they'll be coming out eventually. And the question is, how do they come out? Do you think there's much in the new package that's been proposed and passed that's going to change the way juveniles come out of our facilities?
Yes, but on a long term, not a short term. It's not an immediate fix. But for the first time in New Jersey's history, you have responsibility and authority for policymaking, for planning, and for implementing the New Jersey juvenile justice system in one place, not scattered in half a dozen different departments of state government. That puts the spotlight on the new Juvenile Justice Commission, and it will ultimately coerce improvement, because there will be no ability to say, oh, it's not my problem, it's his problem or her problem.
That sounds like an administrative change which could lead to the charge that this is just a bureaucratic shift that has no significant impact on the kids in the system and what they're going to be like when they come out. How would you respond to that criticism?
You've got to change the system if you're going to change the process and if you're going to change the result. And I think this has implications to improve the system 200–300% over the course of 5 years, 10 years. You're finally going to have one point that is responsible for how the New Jersey juvenile justice system responds to juvenile offenders and juvenile offenses.
Now, in terms of that point of responsibility, would you both agree that a high percentage of juvenile offender activity is drug-related one way or another?
Absolutely. I think a conservative figure would be 60 to 65% either involved in selling or clearly using.
Has the legislature done anything to this point that's going to guarantee the quality of drug treatment that you'd like to see for juveniles who will have drug-related problems, 60, 65%?
The community partnership funding aspect of the new legislation may well and probably will have an impact on that, because you've got funds going to the community level, the county level, the municipal level, from the state level, based on a needs assessment of what do we need in different counties, and in different parts of the state the needs are totally different.
Have discretion to decide how to use those funds?
Absolutely.
So why should that reassure a citizen then that his county or her county is going to get funds which will then be used in an intelligent way that helps wean some of these kids away from drugs as a first step towards meaningful rehabilitation?
Because the new statutes require the creation in every county of a youth services commission. Okay. This is local people who will determine what's needed, what exists and what doesn't exist. What do we need, how much of it, and we'll make a plan which will then go to the state level. The state commission will do a state plan, and then the funds will be parceled out according to that local and state coordinated planning effort. And one of the things you need are beds, inpatient programs, outpatient day programs, etc., for drugs.
Do we know how much money is going to be available for drugs in 1996?
No, I don't.
Ray, currently there are some 300 beds available statewide for for youth for substance abuse. Most of those beds go to alcohol abuse, frankly, and most of them go to youngsters who are not involved with the juvenile justice system.
So it sounds like we'd need, if you're talking about 90,000 kids moving through the system, and assume 30 to 40,000 might have drug-related problems, aren't the numbers you'd need to provide significant treatment large numbers in light of the current government emphasis on economy and unlikely to come out of the legislature?
Depending on whether you're talking about inpatient, outpatient, day programs, counseling, there are different levels of intensity that are required depending on the level of involvement and the level of addiction or the level of drug use involvement, et cetera. It's like adolescent illness. You don't cure adolescent illness by one kind of pill. You figure out what's wrong with this individual teenager, what's needed, and then you make a prescription.
So there has to be a comprehensive analysis of each juvenile that comes into the system, and then a prescription, in effect.
Absolutely.
We've talked about tighter administrative control. We've kind of talked about drugs. I'm not sure where we are. What other elements should be involved, Jesse, if you're looking at trying to get a comprehensive picture of a young person who's been adjudicated a juvenile?
Just as your medical analogy you gave the judge a moment ago, it would apply to juveniles in this situation. You need testing, you need evaluation of their past history, as any physician would in terms of prescribing for an individual. They'd get a past history, they'd conduct certain tests to evaluate the individual's capacity, their mental health situation, their education level, and so on.
Well, are you confident that this new package is going to provide both that ability to analyze the problem, diagnose it, and then to prescribe and to provide the necessary prescription?
I think there are words in the new legislation which will move in the direction of providing greater information. You have due process as the name of this program, and I think due process is something that's been lacking in many counties in the juvenile justice system.
How has due process been lacking?
Well, a lack of information inhibits the ability to provide process in a meaningful manner. When a judge gets before him an individual and only knows about the offense, may or may not know sufficiently about past history, may or may not know about the individual's cognitive abilities, his physical health, and so on, he can only make limited decisions as to where to send that juvenile. Some counties provide that information, others don't. The PDRs, the predisposition reports that are required of probation, at least under this new legislation, will be required to have greater information in that regard.
We've talked about the drug picture, and I'm still a little unclear about whether we'll have enough resources, but let's talk, for example, about the educational component. Clearly, in this state, urban education for all kids is a controversial question that's still being widely debated. In that context, is there reason to believe that if the analysis says Mary Jones or John Jones is a kid who, without training, is not going to fit into the economy because they don't have the educational skills, how are they going to plug in, and where are they going to go, and what is it about this package that makes you feel confident that that's going to take place?
To me, it's because you are requiring now that there be a state plan and that there be county plans that coordinate with and fit that state plan. You've never required that before. There will be a demand that there be facilities, programs, placements available for kids just like that, who have needs just like that. And over a period of 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, those will be developed according to the local planning nature.
Let me ask you to step out of your roles as experts and back into your lives as citizens with neighbors, friends, and relatives. Is it your perception that the public, by and large, thinks that juvenile offenders are being coddled and being treated, as Joe Clark suggests, to resort-type facilities, and that we're not being tough enough, and that there's a need for much more toughness?
Absolutely, and it's because of people like you. The media does not get the truth out about it.
So you think it's a misperception?
When I sat in Newark, I sentenced an 11-year-old to 20 years. Nobody knows that. That doesn't come out. It got a story about that big in the Newark Star-Ledger. That's what the judges are doing in this state.
So you think that the perception is that we're not being tough enough, but in fact the system is tough and citizens just don't know about it?
As a general rule, I think it is. But there's some urge out there, and I don't know whether it's the police that push it or somebody, because, you know, I lock them up and before I get back to the precinct, they're loose. Well, the same thing would happen to an adult. He'd post bail and go home until his trial. Well, a kid gets released until his trial, too.
Jesse,
there's this perception of being too easy, and I don't think it's real.
What do you think is the source of that perception?
I think frankly, the perception, I don't think, is as broad as you state. A recent survey by the National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges indicated that at least half of the people surveyed are interested in rehabilitation for juvenile offenders, as well as punishment for serious offenders. And I think that what we're dealing with here is a somewhat simplistic approach to an issue that is rather complex. For example, in I guess it was 1991 or 92, the last figures I had available, 13% of the juveniles who had family court records were responsible for 46% of the charges. Chronic and repeat offenders, if you will. So concentration in that area versus diversion of the other juveniles towards at least first and second offense situations for rehabilitation and community service and other alternatives, I think are what the public wants. Certainly the public that I deal with are willing to give non-serious offenders a chance at cleaning up their act. That's the whole philosophy of the juvenile code, and treating juveniles somewhat different than adults.
At the time that this package was passed, there was also a boot camp that was authorized by the legislature, which was promoted very heavily by the governor and advertised and I think talked about. Doesn't that feed into the simplistic analysis of what the problem is and what the solutions are? I mean, is a 60-person boot camp going to even make a dent in the problem?
It's a start, and the most encouraging piece that is attached to the boot camp is aftercare. It's also, to me, the most encouraging piece of the major juvenile justice package.
Why is it the most important piece?
Because, take this as an analogy. We had an oil spill in Alaska a few years back. We took the oil ducks out of the water, we cleaned them up. Joe Clark is taking kids out of the community, he's giving them haircuts, he's cleaning them up. We put those ducks back into clean water. We didn't put them back into the same oily water that they came from. These juveniles are going back into communities where the same pressures, the same risks, the same temptations exist. I'm not suggesting that we relocate everybody out west someplace to some pristine setting, but what I am suggesting is that some aftercare programs, the ability to call someone 24 hours a day, the ability to have a shoulder, a surrogate parent, a substitute, if there isn't a parent available, to provide some advice, some mentoring, to keep someone from falling off the track is absolutely necessary if you're back in the same community where the situation exists which led you to get in trouble.
Judge, to extend, you've got to reinforce the changes that were made while in corrections or in placement, and reinforce them when they come back into the community so they continue.
Let's take that to its logical conclusion. What about parents? There's some emphasis in the new package about parental responsibility. Is that real, or is that another kind of symbolic and simplistic approach?
I think it's real. It's going to be more effective in certain areas and in certain strata than in others.
But aren't a significant number of kids caught up in the juvenile system kids who haven't had adequate parental involvement or oversight to begin with?
Some parents don't know how to teach the fact that conduct has consequences, and that's the whole key to it.
And how is this package going to address that parental weakness?
Well, if they find out that they're going to have to pay the restitution, and then I hope get it out of their kids, ultimately make them earn it and pay them back. I hope they have that much sense. Parents may, if they hear that a neighbor had to do that, or a friend or a coworker,
if you
they
were
may
sitting
pull
on the
in the
bench,
reins a little bit.
You'd be confident that that's an effective mechanism for changing juvenile behavior?
I used it a lot.
Did you? And you found it effective?
Yes.
Jesse, do you share the judge's view?
It's not fully. I think it's got to vary significantly by community. There are hosts of absent parents, of judgment-proof parents. So my view is that that's more of a politic way of selling the entire package than reality. Another example is the aftercare component is post-incarceration supervision. Aftercare sounds too soft. It sounds too cuddly. It sounds too social worky. So post-incarceration supervision sounds more law and order and sounds more enforcement.
Sounds a tad Orwellian, too.
Yeah, well, if it achieves the purpose of providing some additional linkage to supports to prevent the individual from reoffending, to prevent the individual from entering into a new career in the adult criminal system, then I think whatever you call it, if it does the job, it's okay with me.
If the legislature made you minister plenipotentiary for juveniles and you could rewrite this package, what, if anything, would you put in there that's not there now?
frankly, significantly more funds than are there
So
now.
dollars are a big issue.
Absolutely.
Do you have a sense of the order of magnitude of investment that's going to be required in this procedure and in facilities?
It may be investment adjustment. It may be reinvestment, changing the investment. Ohio has something similar to the community partnership aspect of the new legislation. As a county reduced its commitment to state facilities of juveniles, it got more money from the state. It then developed its own local earlier intervention methodologies and programs so that they nip it in the bud earlier in a delinquent's career.
So you're talking about
and use corrections, state corrections less, so they got more money back. So the reduction in the use of state facilities increases the funds available for local programs and placements that can get at the problem earlier.
You're talking about giving local government an incentive to be more efficient and imaginative in addressing these issues.
Yes, and effective.
There's cost shifting as well. The cost of an individual, the average cost in detention in the state of New Jersey is $140 a day. We could have individuals at home attending school, attending day programs for a quarter to a half of that cost. For those that require additional security, there are electronic monitoring devices today which will enable monitoring to go on so that they report in at certain places at certain times, and if they fail to, they can be picked up.
If I fail to stop you now, I'd be remiss in my duties, but Jesse Moskowitz and Judge Leahy, I want to thank you for being with us today. And that's it for this edition of Due Process, but we'll be back next week when our focus will be the system of providing those accused of crime who can't afford a lawyer with legal service paid for by the state. That's called the public defender. Next on Due Process. Till then, I'm Ray Brown.
When they get ready, maybe to mug an old lady or to shoot someone, they'll say, oh, no, I don't want to go back there because Joe Clark is bad.
Stolen car, and somebody died because I got in a car accident.
So you're liable to get to know Mr. Clark very well.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
How long you been here? What are you here for?
Murder.
How long do you think you'll be here?
For some years. Ain't no big thing though. He trying to show us that we gotta be responsible when we go home.
Is it working?
I don't know. I ain't go home yet.
Major funding for Due Process was made possible by the New Jersey State Bar Foundation, committed to educating the public about the law. Additional funding was provided by Lawyer's Diary and Manual, publishers of print and electronic information for and about the legal community, including the legislative manual.